Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Practically Tactical, member of the Firearms Radio Network. This episode is sponsored by Great Lakes Ammo, Big Tex Outdoors, and NAF Solutions. So stay tuned to get some great discounts on ammo and gear. So now I'm messing this show up here.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know.
I know. You act like you've never done this before.
It looks like it every time. But as always, this is our live show streaming to you on YouTube. You can also catch all of our shows on iTunes in a podcast format. We have a really awesome show for you guys today. We have someone that has not been on before, and I can tell you is a wealth of knowledge, has a wealth of experience. We have Jay from Crisis Application Group. Hey, Jay, man, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's going to be a great time. So let's see here. So for everybody on chat, if you guys got any questions, put those in, and I'll do my best to copy and paste them and answer them during the show. And, of course, if you guys enjoy this show, be sure to click thumbs up and share. We'd greatly appreciate it. But let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome to Practically Tactical, member of the Firearms Radio Network. Practically Tactical show where critical thinking meets everyday carry. The show features a roundtable discussion on mindset, concealed carry, training, medical, and more, with some of the best instructors, shooters, and figures in the firearms industry. On this episode, we're talking with Jay Paisley from Crisis Application Group. First time on the show, we're super excited, but Jay, appreciate you coming on the show, sharing some knowledge with us, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's show. But again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and of course, guys, our show is brought to you by Big Tex Outdoors, our new sponsor, NAF Solutions, and then, of course, Great Lakes Ammo. Go to practicallytactical.com/sponsors and check out all the discounts on gear, ammo, stippling, all that stuff. Please go check that out and support our sponsors. And, of course, while you're checking out the show notes, you can get all the information to go find all the links to go check out Crisis Application Group. All their social media and all that good stuff will be on the website show notes. But, of course, while you're checking out the show notes, be sure to scroll down and click on that Amazon banner on the website and do all your shopping on Amazon, because a portion of your sale goes to help support shows here on the Firearms Radio Network. So we got Jeff, as usual here. Usually I go to Jeff. I'm going to mix it up on today's show. I'm going to go to Jesse first here.
Ooh.
Changing it up. How are you, sir?
Oh, again, just living the dream, man.
Every day living the dream,
That's right.
Especially on Wednesdays. Then, of course, we have Jeff. How are you, sir?
Great.
Yeah. Another
I
beautiful
feel
day.
like I could do the opening of the show from having.
Oh, you definitely could.
Unless you're like, all right, and let's start the show, and then you go, welcome to Practically Tactical. Thank you very much for joining us. Very greatly appreciate it.
So, Jay, first time on the show, so all they do is make fun of me for being polite and nice. That's all they do. They
You
just
shouldn't be so
harass me.
polite and nice. I don't know. Just kick it. Kick the habit, man.
Well, and of course, we've already got questions about your beard, Jay. So we'll maybe save that for later, though. We'll let them hang a little bit. But before we get into the show here, a couple notes. Obviously, the Get Your Gunfighter on patch is shipping. We also announced that our actual show logo patch has been ordered. That is available for pre-order at practicallytactical.com. So if you guys want, you can check that out and save some money on it before we actually get it through the pre-order. And then, of course, a big thing would be we have our listener classes in 1 week from this Friday, so 9 days away. So that'll be good. But, of course, go to the website. We have space available in the low-light class and at the Handgun and Carbine Alliance, so go check that out. But I'm done talking. Let's go ahead and start this here. So we have Jay from Crisis Application Group. So, Jay, can you give us a little bit of history? So you were born without a beard, I'm assuming, and then you grew a beard, and now you shave the beard. So what led up to all of this?
The beardage. Well, it's my annual grooming, so I take pictures. It'll be next year before you see it again. But I don't know, you want me to again, the Army or what?
Yeah, tell us, history maybe before the Army, what you did in the Army.
I was in the big Army. I was a 19 Delta before the war started. It was pretty miserable. During the Clinton drawdown years, nothing was going on. And I got orders for drill sergeant school, and that was kind of like a fork in the road for me because I hated the privates that I already had, and the last thing I wanted was to get 50 of them. So when I called up the branch and asked me to get out of it, they basically told me to flip or go to selection. So I committed. I said I'll go to selection one time. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. Well, I made it. So that was in '98, sometime around '98. Then I started the Q course as a weapons guy because I have a really awesome Georgia public education, and all of my test scores basically rock bottom. And but I had a really high GT score, so when I came out of small unit tactics, they handed me a 4187 and said, "Go over to the medical course. You're going to be a medic." And just like that, I started the med course, went straight through it. And for me, when I went through it, I know it's changed up now, but SEER school was the last thing that you did when I went through the Q course, and I was in SEER school on September 11th. And yeah, it was kind of, when they first came out and told us about it, we kind of thought maybe it was part of the scenario. But we had a recycle in the class. I was like, no, it's not part of the scenario. It's really happening. And, they kind of broke protocol, let us listen to the president's radio speech and everything else during class. And me and about 8 or 9 other guys had orders to 5th group, which covered the Middle East. And so it was kind of surreal because from then on out, all the "hey, you could go to war" is "hey, you're definitely going to war." Mm. And naturally, you're trying to go back through the course of all the stuff you blew off because now you're about to actually have to go use it. Long story short, I showed up to group. They started jockeying to put us in places, and we started deploying pretty immediately, just about everywhere. I was in 5th group from October of 2001 officially to the end of 2005, beginning of 2006, and then I got hired to go be a medic for the Tier 1 Special Missions Unit out of Fort Bragg. I did that for a little while, and I retired there at the end of 2013. Started a business, largely because I tried college at 38 years old, and it's not quite the same as when you're 18, and had a hard time finding a job with my resume, and one thing led to another. Somebody asked me for a class, and next thing you know, I'm running a small business. So that's it. I mean, those are the highlights. That's the highlight reel.
It's funny that you say the college thing because I did that a couple years ago, and Jeff is now going on it. Were you ever sitting there? Yeah, Monday Jeff starts. Oh. Were you ever sitting in school and you just look around at everybody and be like, "I'm surrounded by idiots"?
I certainly was surrounded by young folks. I wouldn't call them idiots. I mean, they weren't taking the class seriously. The teacher knew we had to take the class for their degree. The students knew we were only taking the class for their degree. Nobody was there to learn the subject. It was just mandatory, and that was kind of the flavor from start to finish. And just, I don't know, it was just an all around. Maybe when you're 18, you don't care, but at 38, you got better things to do.
No, I agree with that. But so you got out and you started Crisis Application Group. Can you tell us a little bit about Crisis Application Group, CAG?
Yeah, so Crisis Application Group, yes, it's a knockoff of the military acronym, but long story short, it's basically a national membership program, and the idea behind the group is to unite veteran-owned businesses, training companies, with a mature, proactive audience and kind of link the two up. And what we try to do is incentivize the members to get out from behind social media and actually get out there and go take classes. Rather than sit around and discuss what's the best way to do a concealed carry or learn how to draw, what the best holster is, it's like we tell folks, hey, you just need to go out and take a class. And we incentivize it through our tab program. So we got 4 primary tabs, but we have some specialty tabs. We got marksmanship, austere medicine, survival, and communications. And what happens is if one of our members goes out and takes a class from one of our affiliate trainers, we'll reward them with these tabs, and of course, then we at Crisis Application Group, we give out free training. We'll pay for courses, they win prizes, or we'll run tab-only training. Again, it's all about incentivizing folks from getting out from behind the keyboard and getting out into the world and getting their hands on real experience and real training.
No, that's awesome. On this show, we're big proponents of number one training for the fact of like anybody can shoot a gun. It's not hard to shoot a gun. The thinking and problem solving that can go behind it is really where that training pays off.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of folks see is. I mean, I engage them on social media. I mean, we got to meet somewhere, and we'll kind of have these little back and forths and these what if discussions, and and I don't like to sound coy to them, but I tell them, say, hey, you kind of come out and see for yourself. And a really good example of you kind of have to see it to kind of learn it is like pieing off corners. It's a very, very simple task, but when you get out there and you try to apply it on a live range or under simulated fire with an op-4, it becomes a very different task than what you kind of mentally envision. You're not just pieing off behind corners. You're really using that cover to the best of its ability, or why be behind it.
No, that's a great point. Geez, I'm mixing up names now. Jeff, do you want to go ahead? You had a question?
No, I'm just listening. It's good.
Okay.
I was, I got some questions in the show notes.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your philosophy. Do you have a philosophy or something like if every student that leaves my classes will walk away with one thing or something along those lines? Do you have anything along?
Yeah,
like
master basics. The biggest thing I get hit with all the time is guys come out. They have to kind of mitigate their expectations. I mean, guys come out. They get a day with training with an SF guy, and it doesn't have to be me. It can be anybody. But they kind of in their brain think I'm going to show them a trick, like to how to curve bullets around trees, or I'm going to make it fast, or I'm going to show them some really ninja skills. And at the end of the day, I'll focus on the fundamentals: speed, accuracy, a few other things, and we'll really drive that home. And after 8 hours of fundamentals training, I mean, they're better marksmen, but they're generally excited or exhausted from just focusing on those very finite points, but doing them correctly. Because at the end of the day, combat is taught. Basically, all the veterans can vouch for me. It's like in an emergency, you don't rise to the occasion; you fall down to the level of your training. We try to identify those tasks that are simple enough that your reptilian brain can do them in the heat of the moment, but are proven to work in an emergency when you don't have all your faculties about you. So the basics work. Master the basics.
Oh, that's a great point.
Exactly. No, I mean that's like that whole thing that we talk about too. Is there's no real like quote unquote advanced gunfight or advanced gun training. It's just being able to apply the basics at will that kind of comes to save the day. Because if you're not making the hits, then what are you really doing? And you're not making them quickly. So yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like everyone can shoot. What are we frequently talking about here recently is like everybody can shoot great at 3 yards, right? And then go back to 25. It's like nobody shoots at 25 anymore, which is one of the reasons that I love Steve Fisher. You kind of just hit it off with him so well, is because he actually puts people at 25 and 50. It's like, God forbid you have to take a distant shot or just have enough mastery of your gun to do that. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of something we try to bring out in the training. So I tell students when they come out here, look, the fundamentals, that's your bubble, that's your world. My job as the instructor is to create the circumstances or put you into a dynamic setting, and the intent is to draw you out of your bubble. But you have to be disciplined. You have to stay within that bubble. Sugar squeeze and side alignment, no matter what I'm making you do or what's going on around you. At the end of the day, real discipline is, can you apply those fundamentals when everything's trying to get you to squeeze rounds off real fast and really scare the enemy off. I mean, let's face it, you're not going to hit them if you're just cracking rounds off at them. So that's kind of the challenge is getting people to focus on those fundamentals and then shaking up the training enough so that it kind of pulls them outside of that center bubble. And that's where we see most of the growth is when we get them shooting fast or have them going up against op4, because we use op4. You definitely got to have targets that shoot back and behave and respond to the stimulus that you give them. And it's a tough sell sometimes because people they want to do shiny stuff. They want to shoot fast real quick, and that's all good. But you gotta be able to hit the target, and you gotta be able to do it safely.
Now, do you do that with simunitions or?
We're using airsoft. I've got hundreds and hundreds of hours on simunitions. And early on, I was going to kind of buy into simunitions, and my son begged me to, before I went out and spent the money, to go buy an airsoft rifle. And of course, being an SF guy, I was a big snob about it. There's no way, blah, blah, blah. It's for kids. They wear Darth Vader outfits. I'm not doing it. But, I got one. He begged and pleaded. I got one, and I shot it. I took it out to the shoot house and played with it, and all I can say is I was wrong. They are fantastic training tools. Fantastic training tools when used correctly.
Yeah. So. Jay, I can already tell you're going to be back on the show because I am falling in love with everything you're saying right now.
Good.
Because it's just, and you see it all the time too. Of everybody. Timestamp this. Everybody wants to just burn shit down at 3 yards, which looks cool, but usually that does not work. At 25 yards, guess what? You can't shoot the same amount. You can't shoot at that rate, and be anywhere accurate. So, what's your deal? And I'm taking, man. I love this. So you talked about OPT4. What all classes do you offer?
The two primary classes we offer a wide variety of classes, but basically the two classes we give the most are combat marksmanship, some variation of introduction to pistol rifle, but our combat marksmanship course is kind of that combination, total warrior concept, pistol rifle, emergency action procedures, and so on. And then our austere medical course, which teaches you TCCC from the 11 Bravo standpoint. I don't need you to regurgitate medical terminology. I just need you to react to what the patient's doing. So those are our two primary courses. But, as any good tactical company, we offer, survival. We're going to start offering some communications courses here soon, but, land navigation. Heck, we even offer how to prep and harvest pigs and chickens if you're interested.
Oh, that's really cool. So, really, you're really kind of offering like a whole curriculum of not just guns. Like, you can train and increase your skills in other areas, not just guns.
Yeah, I don't consider us a firearms or a marksmanship company, more of the old SF adage, the jack of all trades, master of none. I think what you see with the rise of TAC medicine, within this community is, tactical medicine is kind of that natural, evolution of personal readiness skills. Firearm self-defense. Okay, well, what's next? And I think first aid. And as guys continue to take that journey, they inevitably want to kind of branch out into some other areas, and we try to accommodate.
Let me go back to my show notes here. So, where are you based out of? That would be something. So, if our listeners out there want to take a class with you, where are you located at?
So CAG Maine, as we lovingly call it, is our 50-acre farm. It's in Conyers, Georgia. It's right outside of Atlanta. When we run courses, we run them here at CAG Maine. We also travel. We've gone to Ohio and a few other places to set up clinics, but we've got a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house here that we routinely cover up in blood and shoot up, for training. It's also our doubles as our classroom. And then we got 36 acres of pasture that we, barring the weather, we do drive-bys, vehicle drills. It's a full range. We can shoot whatever we want out there. It's a 360-degree range, and we use it accordingly.
You can do drive-bys?
Yeah, shooting from the vehicle, it's you'll find out real quick when you're shooting from the go. It's one of those skills that in your mind looks one way. But the paper has reality for you out there. You're not really hitting much.
Well, no, I was thinking just for Instagram pictures. That's what training's about, right? Just Instagram pictures.
Yeah, it's all about Instagram and Facebook. Which is my, like Instagram and Facebook are almost like the bane of my existence because, we sit there and we look at some of this stuff. I'm like, man, how how do I, from a marketing standpoint, compete with these dudes that are zipping around at a second and shooting targets behind their back at like 20 meters? I'm like, well, I'll tell you how. That guy's not really going to do that in a real gunfight. So, but so some, there's a small underground movement of, I'm going to say it originated in software, at least that I've noticed. But there's like an underground movement of combat experienced veteran trainers out there who kind of openly defy the social media aspect of firearms training. And I've said it, and I've seen it other places where it seems like in many cases social media really is ruining quality training. It's putting expectations out into the left field, and guys are kind of, they're not willing to do the work. I mean, so many times I'll see guys, I said this on Instagram, can you do that? It's like, no, if you want to go to the gym and lose weight, you have to go to the gym and lift weights if you want to lose weight. I mean, they want 6-week abs and diet pill fads because that's what they see on Instagram, relative to the firearms industry. And a lot of it is just boring, dry fire, repetition, the basics. I mean, if you're not training with your iron sights, or if, you're at least not competent with your iron sights, then, why do you have a holosight? I mean, really. Holosights let you get away with sloppy fundamentals, so get out there and challenge yourself and do some iron sight stuff. But you don't see much of that on Instagram or Facebook for that matter.
No, actually, we just released a video of Jeff shooting his Chatoyance Jackson. That's the nickname of his 1903A3. And while he was shooting that, he actually talked about how it was kind of nice to really get back to those iron sights and fundamentals of shooting. And he was rocking a target at 300 yards with his 03A3.
Yeah, I mean, I shoot a stock Generation 2 Glock. I mean, it's a good pistol. People ask me how come I don't have a Gen 4. It's because my Gen 2 still works. So another reason I shoot with stock equipment, and where I make the instructors around here shoot with stock equipment, is when the students come out here, I don't want them to think that somehow we have some type of technological advantage over, in the drill over them. It's like, no, we're just applying trigger squeeze and side alignment, and they can see that. Even with our crunchy triggers, we're pretty good. So.
Did you have a question there, Jesse?
No, I completely agree with all that. That's really well said. I mean, I agree that Instagram fads are kind of destroying this industry. One thing I would like to talk on is you kind of touched on a little bit earlier was kind of the progression that you've seen going through like GWAT and this whole obviously 2001 to 2013 and kind of how the medical industry has changed. When obviously I was in the military, we took CLS, RFR, things along those nature, and even like as a civilian I've taken an EMTB where I had actually learned more in the military than the longer 6-month course of EMTB school. So could you talk a little just on the progression of things that you kind of have seen changed and maybe where the medical industry is kind of going?
Sure. I mean, so combat war has been the groundbreaking, arena, if you will, for every major medical breakthrough. I mean, anesthesia, surgery, antibiotics, you name it. Even our understanding of blood products basically is coming off the battlefield, and this war is no different. The biggest thing I would say this war has offered, medically speaking, is the understanding that decentralizing these life-saving skills is what's saving lives. So the best part about TCCC is that everybody's probably been exposed to it in the military in one form or another. They maybe didn't call it TCCC, but that military trauma model is that it gets decentralized down to the lowest common denominator, and we're not hoarding it to classically credentialed folks. So if you look at the battlefield, a vast majority of the lives that were saved from non-medical providers who put forth data-proven life-saving steps, and so that's the trick. So it's not really the 68 whiskeys and the 18 deltas that are the powerful medical tool on the battlefield. It's the 11 bravos. It's the fuelers. It's the private out there who got the combat lifesaver, and we got the data to back that up. So it was a unique journey because it actually started before I even joined the Army. You know, prior to Black Hawk Down, I mean, military medicine as a whole mirrored civilian EMS medicine almost entirely. And then what you see is in Black Hawk Down, not the movie, but you know the actual episode. If you read the book's pretty good in that it gives you a better sense of the scope of the operation. But there's a lot of treatments and procedures that went down during that operation that, by today's standards, we would never do. You know, they ran out of IVs and so on, and that was kind of the point where Soft said, "Okay, we're going to do our own thing." And for years, we were kind of out there flapping and kind of the butt of all the jokes in terms of the medical community. The civilians didn't want anything to do with us. And then September 11th happened, and we had a chance to apply all that craft. And boy, it worked. I mean, the numbers came back early on that what we're doing is working. And as with most things, it started off with soft and kind of trickled its way down to the rest of the force. And here we are 12, 13 years into this process. And I mean, we expect you to survive most of these ones by and large. I mean, you look at the survival rate compared to the injury rate. If you put our casualty count next to Vietnam, it's off the charts successful.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
No, everything you said there is. I mean, it'd have to be kind of an interesting dynamic just to watch of literally this thing that you were testing out, literally go into application immediately, and then work immediately. I mean, that kind of had to be kind of a really cool feeling and amazing thing to watch it unfold as, wow, what we're doing is actually making a difference today, not 5 or 10 years and waiting for all these studies. It's literally working now.
Yeah, I mean, that was always kind of interesting, and you always felt like you were a rogue, if you will. You're out on your own, kind of just doing what works, no red tape. A lot of the stuff you're seeing hit the civilian market now, I was playing with 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was playing with the initial batch of this stuff, and it's just now getting to the civilian market. Early on in the war, I mean, if you said this worked and you needed it, by God, you got it. There was FDA beyond, or beyond, sorry, I don't mean to cuss. You were getting it because that's what the battlefield called for. And there's a lot of changes. I mean, a lot of changes. Tourniquets were verboten. Now, I mean, they're as commonplace as any piece of gear out there.
So to kind of go back a little bit here, so
Sure.
you were a combat medic, and you were a combat medic with Green Berets and then Delta. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I was in 18 Delta and 5th group, 5th Special Forces group. I was on ODA 575 and 571. And then I was an assault medic with the Tier 1 unit. You know what I'm talking about. All right, so with the Tier 1 unit out of Fort Bragg, I won't say it, whatever, if you guys do, that's fine. Yeah,
that's the D word, isn't it?
yeah. I guess old habits die hard, but
yeah. No, it's fine.
Bottom line is, over there, you kind of get to not do what you want, but you get the opportunity to kind of really get out there and refine your craft. I mean, you work really close with the surgeons, and if you decide that you need med training or a med skill, I mean, you go get it, and you find out if it works or not. So you go from being a really good combat medic, in a special forces group with a very wide scope of practice to this highly specialized. I mean, basically a medical operator. I mean, that's more or less what you are. You go to the operator training course. You're in the maneuver elements, and you go out there with a force, and you're going to do everything right there on the battlefield. You're it. There is no backup. So when it goes down, they're coming to you. And when it goes down, so you're always getting casualties to play with.
What I find kind of interesting about this, and we've had Kerry Davis from Dark Angel Medical on the show before. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. We talked kind of more of like the kind of gear and training aspect, and this is something that I'm guilty of, which we talked about before the show. I haven't taken a medical training class. It's on my list to get done this year. It needs to be done. But a lot of people kind of poo-poo the medical training or disregard it because the gun's cooler. But literally, if we look at you and your experience, how important the medical is, so I mean, so many people kind of imagine, and I'm sure I had it in my mind too, of there's these operator dudes running around just, smoking people, and the medical thing, you don't really talk about. But obviously, it's a critical part of any mission to actually have medical with you because it's that important.
It is. So there's two aspects to the medical training that from a discussion standpoint, I like to bring up. Professionally in the military, SOF really only does what everybody else does, only they do it really, really well. But one of the things that differentiates SOF from conventional forces is they take the contingencies very, very seriously. So every operator in my maneuver element, when it was time to do med training, I mean, by God, they took it seriously and they were there to learn it because they know they're going to have to face this. But really what you get from a command standpoint is a lot of units can do these missions. I mean, they can. I mean, you're whacking dudes, right? But the reason why they send units, the tier units out there is because there's maturity and professionalism, but they basically can rely on these folks to come through if everything goes wrong. They're sent not to do things right. They're sent in case things go wrong because they take those contingency missions very, very seriously. Medevac being one of them. I mean, every time I got a casualty in the Tier 1 unit, greater than half the time, I mean, he was already packaged and on a litter before they even got to me. I just gave him the thumbs up, stole their credit, put it on my stats, and sent the dude out the door. So, on the civilian side, the biggest thing I'll point out is, you are statistically, in every way, more likely to face a medical emergency, a trauma emergency, in every way over any type of firearms type event. It's not that you don't need to take firearms training seriously, you absolutely do, but statistically speaking, if something happens, a tornado, a hurricane, or even a mugging, you are going to be faced with, some type of medical crisis. So it behooves you, to use the word, to at least take a basic trauma course.
No, I agree. I think that's definitely where I'm failing, and I'm sure Jesse, you can back up everything he said there with the importance of medical in the military.
Yeah, no, definitely. Obviously, he is talking, obviously with special forces, they're going out into locations where maybe a cache isn't available within this like golden hour that they teach in the military. So the importance of having someone like that on hand, and I mean, the way he's talking like specialty, like he's really underplaying it. Like these guys are surgeons, like I mean sutures, anything, like. And not only just their team, but indigenous people as well. Like you see them all the time out there performing operations or just helping people out. So medical goes a long way, even for just those like, friendly relations of coming into a village or something along those lines. So, again, special forces, they all have a specialty going in. So you have like a guy that's specializes in explosives, and I think most of them will tell you that the medical is the hardest practice just because there's so much to learn. He's got to learn all the gun handling, all the other stuff on top of surgery, basically, and all sorts of surgery. You go to the medical or the hospital, it's like they have guys that specialize in each thing, and he's got to kind of specialize in them all. So, again, obviously really underplaying himself, a humble guy, of course, but a professional to the highest degree, for sure.
Yeah. Not bad for a D student, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, I was a D student in high school. I mean, I was. So I kind of played a role in my career choices. Remember, they used to give the TAPE test, the Adult Basic Education Test. So if you tested my education, I didn't do too well. But
what I want to mention too, and it's going to be in the show notes, and for everyone watching on YouTube, it's down in the description box. Trigger Time TV did a video. If you guys want to get some more history and more detailed background on Jay, you can check that out. It's in the description box, and I'll add it to the podcast show notes. But in there you talk about, and I thought this was really kind of a great way to talk about kind of a mindset, especially in the medical realm of if I would go to people to find out how to do something, and if they didn't like it, well, I'd say, well, I'm going to go out there and have to do it. So I'm going to do it no matter what. So you better teach me. And I kind of really like that mindset, especially from the learning aspect of I'm going to figure out how to do everything that I absolutely can, whether you like it or not, because I might need to do it. And I just thought that was a credit to your mindset, really, on the medical. So, that and way more is in that video. But I wanted to give you credit on that because I thought, to me, that was kind of really one of the powerful points of that interview.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I had to learn early on when I was in the Q course to kind of change my modus operandi. I mean, I always felt like I was destined to mediocrity until I got into SF, and they gave me a chance to get out there and kind of spread my wings, if you will. And my first real encounters with the world outside of the Army were on my clinical rotations. So I was at Tahlequah, Oklahoma, doing a residency program basically there for the 18 Delta program. And this is pre-war, so at the time nobody was really motivated to kind of teach the old Army students. We were always kind of seen as 50-50. 50% of them loved us because they thought we were cool Green Berets, and the other half were kind of like, boo, you're never going to do this. Well, you know, when I was in the OBGYN clinics trying to deliver babies and do C-sections and all that stuff, the docs didn't want anything to do with it. And I had to tell them, hey, look, you know, I'm going to go out to Africa or the Middle East, and I'm going to deliver babies. Now, when I go deliver these babies, I'm going to do it with the experience you give me here or without the experience you give me here. But either way you look at it, I'm going to go deliver these babies. And, you know, and eventually they acquiesce and they come around and, all right, come on in. And, you know, reluctantly, they kind of show me their ways. And sure enough, yeah, I mean, I went out there and delivered babies. And if it wasn't for those docs showing me what to do, I mean, it's not like I did any other work, but, you know. Mom was all the work. I just take all the credit. So
now, I really think that there might be a niche in the market. We may have unlocked this here. You should maybe offer like a tactical, you know, birthing class. I think you might have some people into that. You know.
Yeah, you know,
and you can have a really cool patch too.
Well, every SF medic's got different experiences, right? Some are very heavy in this field and that field. That has to do with where they're at in time and space. It just worked out. For some reason, I've delivered babies. That was my thing. Some guys have pulled a lot of teeth, and you know, I just haven't done a lot of dentistry work. So just everyone's unique.
But keeping on the medical theme, obviously you've had a vast world of real, you know, a cliche term, real world experience.
Mm-hmm.
But so kind of taking a step back and kind of from obviously your, you know, hands-on experience. And then looking at, you know, the medical industry and how it's changed, you know, what are your thoughts on gear? Do you think there's like any fads and gimmicks in the medical type of gear industry, or is that really kind of streamlining itself out? And are we coming out with some really good gear? What's kind of your thoughts on that?
You know, you look at it from a macro standpoint. Medicine's kind of arrived. I haven't seen any great breakthroughs. That makes sense. There's no real new capabilities that have kind of hit in the last year or two, but there are certainly some new devices out there. Some of them I think are gimmicks, or maybe it's too soon yet. They're not proven. I mean, prove me wrong. I mean, come back with the data, show me, and, you know, and I'm okay with that. But there's a lot of good gear out there. At the end, I mean, when I first started this, I had, you know, the old first aid boxes I packed up with stuff, and now you can get an entire arsenal of medical support equipment tailored to your individual mission if you want to. So the question is, what are you going to do and what do you need to carry? And that seems to be my biggest headache on the TAC med side, is I see so many guys accepting, largely because of cost, I get it, it's expensive, but I see so many folks accepting, you know, less than what they should have in their IFACs because of cost, or weight. You know, if it's weight, I usually get irritated and point into the gym. I mean, would you say that to your rifle, right? Is your magazine too heavy? Is your optic too heavy? Is your buttstock too heavy? So do you take that stuff off your rifle? But we do it to our IFACs. You know, we do it to our IFACs. It's too much stuff and guys won't carry it. So I can't say there's gimmicks. Rather, there's a lot of IFACs, in my opinion, humble though it may be, that simply just don't have enough stuff in it to be, you know, a standalone product, if that makes any sense.
What do you recommend for IFACs?
Well, so I tend to pack everything right down to my IPACs off March. You're familiar with March? It's the sequence that we assess a patient with, massive hemorrhage, airway respiration, circulation, and hypothermia head injury. So anytime I pack anything or look at an IFAC, I literally go down March. Does it have everything for March in this IFAC? And if it doesn't, then I wonder where it's at, right? So if you buy a bleeder pack, that's great, but that only addresses, one aspect of trauma. What about airway and chest wounds? So it's kind of a mixed bag out there. But as long as everything's in there in some way or another, I'm generally okay with it.
Okay. And I should also mention, too, you actually sell those on your website, too, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I sell our IFACs. They're all from North American Rescue. It's all North American Rescue gear. They put our IFACs together for us. The IFACs we put together aren't, although you could break them down and kind of speed load them across your kit, we've got them all vacuum sealed into one big pack because they're really meant for your glove box. They're really meant for at-home use. If there's an emergency, I'm not going to try to ask my wife, hey, pull the hyphen out, right? No, I'm just going to tell her to rip it open and hand me everything in the bag, and that's how we're going to do something. So it's all the right equipment. I just got it packaged for your backpack or your truck or something.
Okay. So something I kind of want to talk about too would be sticking on like the gear aspect for a bit here. Do you have a favorite tourniquet or favorite chest seal? Do you have any products that you prefer over others in that realm of products?
Yeah, I mean, I've got my preferences. I mean, when it comes to tourniquets, I'm a big fan of the TCCC approved windlass tourniquets, either the soft T or the cat tourniquet. If you ask me what my favorite is, I'm going to tell you it's the cat because that's just what I used and what I'm comfortable with. But if you carry the soft T, works for me, thumbs up. Chest seals, there's a big discussion out there. Do they need to have a valve or no valve? And, I'm just going to simplify it for my folks and tell them just get a valve and you can just alleviate the discussion altogether. Just get the valve. But to me, anything with hydrogel is a good chest seal. The hyphens, the halos. There's some new chest seals that we're playing with out now that shrink up real small but open up pretty big. But other than that, I never really got hooked on one particular item or brand. I mean, it's always a classic 18 Delta, or you got what you got and you had to make it work. So I tried to never develop favorites, rather just make the best of what I had. But now I'm a civilian, I get what I want, right?
Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
I was going to say, so kind of, speaking on the civilian term, is there something like you carry, like EDC-wise, like for myself, obviously, I carry just a tourniquet and gauze in my back pocket. You're kind of talking about that IFAC kit, but is there something that you carry on you just personally? Like, are you still carrying the nasal pharyngeal and like the decompression needle, all that stuff on you in your pockets, or?
Yeah, for an everyday carry, I'd say a tourniquet. I mean, you got to look at the average evacuation time in the United States is 15 minutes on the good side, upwards of 45 minutes on the longer side. So if you can control the hemorrhage on a casualty, you could probably get away with positional airways, mouth to mouth, and chest wounds. When it comes to a chest wound, you're only worried about a tension pneumothorax, not necessarily a pneumothorax. So those take time to develop. You don't just get shot and you got a tension pneumothorax. So in the grand scheme of things, if you're only going to carry one thing, make it be a tourniquet. Because again, going back to Instagram, one of the things I see the most is, a lot of these everyday carries are awesome, but it's so much junk. I just don't see folks having the discipline to put it on to go to the gas station real quick to get a can of Copenhagen, right? If you're not going to wear it to go to the gas station and get a can of Copenhagen, then it's not really an everyday carry. It's too much stuff. So I don't know. Not that you don't. I'm just saying, in my opinion, most folks carry too much. I think a tourniquet is pretty good, and have an IFAC in your car, and you're probably good to go.
I mean, what I love is and I know it too, and everybody can make reasons not to have medical training, and I am still in that boat. And I mean, it's gonna end this year, but just hearing about how important it is, I mean, really drives it home. And again, we're not talking just about, we're not talking about carrying these for, a shooting or a mass shooter or, stopping ISIS for invading. We're talking about like car wrecks or, somebody falls and breaks their leg or falls off a house or, whatever it might be, which is probably where, and Jeff uses this line all the time about, what are you going to use more? You're probably going to use your medical way more than you're ever going to use a gun. And so why not carry something you're going to use more?
Yeah, how many YouTube videos have we seen of hunters accidentally shooting themselves or animal attacks or somebody dropping a chainsaw on their foot? I mean, accidents happen. Trauma happens. It's a reality. Statistically, it's a very likely thing that you'll encounter in your life.
No,
Or
the
putting-
basics are so easy to learn. Like, honestly, when you get down to just the brass tacks of keeping someone alive for that 15, 30 minutes until medical can arrive and they know more than you, it's super easy. Like, there's really no excuse not to.
Yeah, I agree. So when I give my classes, that's what I do. I certainly don't dumb it down. I stick to where, the brass tacks, we get right to it. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to go right into the patient assessments. And as we say, the science is in the sequence. We get what if all the time. Well, what if this happens? And what if what? You stick to your sequence. And then, we give you a treatment for every aspect of the sequence. And, that's the beauty of the TCCC, that military trauma model, is that the science and the studies and the data, it's already done. It's already done. You don't have to deliberate. It's already done. Just stick to the sequence and drop the treatments in as you come across them, and you're probably going to be good to go.
Okay. So I'm going to take a break real quick here because we've got a bunch of questions out in chat here. Number one thing we have to address, because it's been mentioned multiple times, is the beard. So you shaved your beard, because if they go out and watch the video that I mentioned earlier, you obviously have this glorious beard.
Yeah.
And now it's gone. So for those that on podcast are missing exactly what we're talking about. But do you have an official statement? Does the beard have a press release?
Yeah, the
what
beard
happened?
press release is I generally do one annual grooming, and then it's pretty much Taliban for the rest of the year. So
that's a good way to put it.
we're getting into summer.
So start jumping on some questions here, and for everybody out in chat and watching on YouTube, I really appreciate you guys. Again, if you guys got any more questions, put them in. I'm copying them and putting them in my show notes here. But one question is, what are the differences in the medical equipment that you carried as a medic and an SF medic, and then the medical equipment that is available today for the general public? Are there any differences? And I know over time that's probably changed for you of what you carried, but are there any differences in the actual product at all, or can you pretty much get the same?
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, I would say arguably budgets withstanding. I mean, I got better equipment now than I did when I was on active duty. Instead of getting the best of the bulk that the military bought, I just get specifically what I want. But yeah, I'm using the exact same stuff as a civilian as I did when I was out on the battlefield. The only difference is my scope of practice as an SF medic, versus regular civilian. But the tourniquet I'm expecting you to buy, or I request you to buy, is the same exact tourniquet I've used on the battlefield. No difference. Same thing on the chest seals, right down to the gauze. Same. Because it works. It works. There's no doubt it works.
Okay. Another question would be, is there any medical equipment that you used in the military that does not apply in the civilian side, or everything that you had there still might apply for a civilian to use?
That's a tricky question, because in the civilian world, you got litigation. I mean, if we were all in the Army right now, I would teach every one of you to do a crike, surgical airway. Now, with the understanding that, look, the guy's going to die without it. So, but would I teach a civilian that? Probably not. I mean, the last thing I need is have somebody crike somebody on a hunting trip and then it get back to me. But and that's the difference. In the military, it's not that the procedures can't be done or that they're not reasonably safe compared to the injury at hand. It's just, out here, it's a totally different animal. I mean, you got lawyers, so. But like I said in the beginning, I mean, this is 11 Bravo stuff. Not that they're dumb. They're great dudes. Love the 11 Bravos. I know it comes off like I'm busting the chops. I'm not. I'm illustrating that the stuff that works is the stuff anybody can learn.
Okay.
So
So here was something last time that I guess it was somewhat controversial or something, because it's been mentioned. I've seen it a few times. So when Kerry Davis on, he talked about for application of tourniquets, high and tight, not on the wound. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, go high or die. So when it comes to, and I say combat trauma a lot, but really, dynamic graphic trauma, it's hard to visualize where the top of the wound is. I mean, if I just chopped your leg off with a samurai sword, I'm like, all right, well, there it is. But when it comes to bullet fragments and shrapnels, you just don't know where that artery is nicked up that bone line. You don't. So to go old school, one hand above, or whatever the old monikers were, the wound just simply doesn't apply. I mean, you need to go as high on those thighs and arms as possible, because the reality of trauma is you can't see where those bleeders are. So you should be, if it's on the thigh, it should look like a bikini. And if it's on the arm, you should get as close to a wife beater tank top as you can get it. I mean, as high as you can possibly get. Tourniquets are safe. We put them on in the operating room every day, for hours at a time. Doesn't mean that they won't have issues to work through, but they're safe. I mean, they're safe. I mean, I'm not going to say they're not without consequences, but they're so minor in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, I mean, I'd let my wife put one on me if I was shy in a heartbeat.
So our good buddy, actually, Troy from Trigger Time TV is out in chat, and he wanted me to ask this question because it's the question you get asked the most, and you love answering it so much. You just love this question.
I think I know what it is.
Yeah, I think you exactly know what it is, and I'm sure you get this all the time, but we'll get it out of the way now, because I'm sure it will come up. If you've ever had to shoot someone and then work on them, as in save their life.
Yes, I've had to hurt people a variety of ways and then turn right around and have to render first aid on them. So you can make the argument that it's the marksmanship problem, not a medical problem, or however you want to do it. But early on in my career, I wasn't necessarily motivated to work on those guys, but the higher I climbed up the food chain and the more professional I saw myself as a provider, if my mission was to work on these guys, then that's it. I worked on them. I mean, I never tapped into mission resources. It was just business. It was never personal. It was none of those, oh, you're working on Haji, whatever. Hey, that's my job. That's what I'm here to do. By God, they're getting medical care. But yeah, it's one of those weird dynamics. It's certainly not unique to me, but civilians oftentimes have a kind of a hard time wrapping their mind around, shooting somebody and then turn right around and, there's a chest seal. So, yeah,
I think that's a great point, because we've had that question come up a lot in chat, and that's kind of what I kind of want to go off of because we get that question a lot. If you shoot somebody, in home defense, whatever the situation is, and then about rendering aid. A lot of people go, well, you tried to kill me, or I'm gonna screw that, or the other question is, well, if I try to render aid, then mess it up, then I'm going to be liable. And so I think what it comes down to at the end of the day is, number one, training, medical training. But two, I like the way that you said it there of you have to take the personal aspect out of it. Now that's, I mean, it's not, I don't want to say this wrong. I mean, the way you said it, it makes it sound easy, and I'm sure it wasn't. But for us regular guys, if this is probably the only time you ever shoot someone in your life, and then to go to render aid. But the way you put it is, when we look at what we talk about on the show is like a martial path and this training of being a thinker. I like the way you said it. Of it's professional. It's taking the personal aspect out of it. And you may have changed my mind about having to provide medical care to, heaven forbid, if I had to shoot someone to do it. That line you said there really kind of makes me think about that.
Yeah, again, on social media, a lot of these places tend to be echo chambers, and within these echo chambers, you hear a lot of intellectually lazy answers. What happens if somebody trespasses on my property? Oh, I'm going to shoot them. It's like, well, that's an easy answer, but what if, like, a bona fide gunfighter just needs to get from point A to point B? You're going to pick the wrong fight one day, and it's not going to pan out well for you. Likewise, in a home, invasion, if you shoot somebody, we like to sit here and fantasize. and I don't want to walk a fine line here, but at the end of the day, if the guy's not dead, I don't know. To me, you probably need to at least do something. If it doesn't take away from your security and safety, but that's the trick. If it doesn't take away from your security and safety, then sure, I don't see the harm in it. I mean, why not?
No, it definitely makes you think. So I really like the way that you put that. So I'm gonna get back some questions here. There's a couple more things that we would like to cover here, because especially you kind of talked about it before when we talked about the tourniquets of bullets and fragments. I think a lot of people get mixed or led to believe, especially from movies, media, that the bullet goes in and it exits out the other side. While that can be true, bullets can do weird and funny things, can't they?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, they go point A to point B, but enough times they go all sorts of funny directions where they hit a bone and then the bone shatters and it's its own falling. So it's better to have a thorough patient exam than to go into an injury thinking you kind of know what the outcome is. Just be thorough on your end and take everything as you find it, and you'll probably be okay, because an AR round is traveling at crazy velocities. I mean, who knows what it's going to hit and what direction it's going to turn. And same thing with an AR, maybe the shrapnel does the same thing. Just be thorough. Don't go into it with any preconceived notions. If you see an entrance wound on the chest, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have an exit wound on his back. It could be in his armpit or in his neck. And you got to take into consideration too, the target. If or the patient in this case. What if he was already in the prone position? In our mind, we're going to shoot a dude and he's going to drop, right? But what if he's already laying down in the prone when you shot him? You got to expect these downward angle shoulder type injuries, and and so on. What if you shoot a guy and he's not facing directly on you? I mean, bullets do funny things, and you have a say so in the direction they travel.
You talked about earlier tension pneumothorax. Do you? So I would say you do recommend, because I've seen out in chat there. Do you recommend concealed carry, regular day, everyday carry people, whatever, to have training on that first and then to carry one, if they so choose?
Yeah, I think as a civilian, there's if you're going to carry an IFAC, you need to have a class. I can see in some military settings why maybe a platoon went out, not everybody got it. But in the civilian side of the house, if you're going to commit to buying an IFAC, I mean, you should really, research isn't enough. You got to get out there and get your hands on it and have somebody kind of watch over what you're doing. But I wouldn't let access to quality training, be a reason not to get an IFAC. I mean, again, I don't want to leave anybody the impression they don't need the first aid training or don't go get an IFAC. I mean, who knows? Maybe the guy you're with has medical training. But as far as chest seals go, they're very, very straightforward to use. They're very easy. You really only need to know two things. It's called mechanism of injury and difficulty breathing. But you can identify those two things, you're doing pretty good. So seal them up, send them out the door.
Okay. Do you guys got any questions?
One thing that I think, coming from obviously 11 Bravo background, and then really getting into like the civilian side of training and being a concealed carrier, something I really had to do is kind of de-humble myself. Like, I really had this expectation of I had been to combat, I'd been in gunfights, so I really thought I knew it all. And taking civilian courses, I learned I have to do things completely different as kind of an independent operator. Now, you coming from kind of a special forces background, you're more independent operators already. Is there anything that you noticed that you kind of had to change when either training people civilian wise or yourself learning something more as a civilian?
I mean, anytime I get a student, I learn something new. I mean, every time, it never fails. I always learn something from students, but the biggest thing I have to teach, guys who are veterans largely is, hey, look, you don't have an infantry squad with you anymore, right? So the way you look at CQB, it has to evolve. You can't fantasize about flowing through a room the way you did when you had a platoon of hoods behind you. You can't. So it's important, to get out of the world of conjecture, and that's what we try to do here at CAG Maine. And we try to put you in scenarios, let you see for yourself. I mean, people argue all the time, this is the best technique or this is the best piece of equipment for this scenario. I'm like, well, come on out and see for yourself if it is or isn't. And oftentimes they're not. I mean, I see significant changes, like people who are big fans of ARs, when you do force-on-force training, magically become big fans of pistols. It's different. I mean, pistols are great weapons.
Just do the move. Just do the move. That's one of our saying when we have people that no, this will work or whatever. Then it's like, okay, do the move. No, I punched you in the face. Just do the move.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary the self-defense genre is kind of scary as a whole because of litigation. I mean, lawyers have just mucked it up. Doing what you know to be right isn't necessarily, adequate anymore. I mean, you kind of have to arm yourself with some knowledge beforehand and some situational unawareness if you really want to keep yourself, kind of on the straight and narrow. I mean, self-defense isn't as cut and dry as it used to be. So I'm always learning. I mean, I hang out with a lot of law enforcement guys, and we try to incorporate their feedback into our training, and everything else. I mean, you take one guy, and I'm going to try to paint a picture if I could. If you're standing in the middle of a hallway and the perpetrator is all the way to your left, and he does a dead sprint at you, to you, and then past you, well, when he was all the way on this end running at you, that's a clear shot. I mean, nobody questions that, right? But that moment he was just past you and now running away from you, that same guy, the same guy over here that was an obvious shot, is now in that ambiguous territory now that he's, technically speaking, maybe running away from you. But we could also make the argument, hey, well, maybe the AK-47 was heavy and he left it in the living room. I don't know. And he was going to go get it. So who knows? So it's scary to be a gunfighter in the civilian world.
But I think the great point you just made there of, and for everybody out there, I mean, this is a guy that's high level, SF guy, but he's talking about learning every single day, getting better every single day, seeking information, finding it, and incorporating. I think that should say a lot. And Jeff, if you got any thoughts on this, it should say a lot about if an SF dude is doing that, then us regular guys, you don't take just the one class and good. It's always trying to get better, seeking out more information.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the best instructors are the eternal students. I think that anybody who says they know everything is probably someone that should be avoided. And it's like, you look at anybody, if somebody's still using, like, shooting techniques from the 80s, then you probably wouldn't want to train with them. And I think it's the same thing with across the board, really. Not so much, well, yeah, even with martial arts. I mean, the face of martial arts has kind of changed with the kind of advent of mixed martial arts. It changed everything, and it slowly continues to do so. So I think that if we want to be good instructors when we're training people, I think that we got to be constantly looking to stuff and constantly looking to evolve. So absolutely, yeah.
All right. I'm going to go back to a couple questions here. Let me scroll up my show notes here. There we go. So a question would be is from actually our guest a couple weeks ago, Mr. Sean Shepard. Do you have a suggested travel kit that is TSA compliant? That's a very specific question, Sean. So good on you.
For a medical kit?
Yes.
I mean, most IFACs are TSA compliant. I mean, I don't know what the standard is on the 14-gauge needles, but generally speaking, I've never had a problem as a civilian, or to my knowledge, any of my members ever had a problem flying with any of the IFACs that we sell or most of the other guys sell. So where you start getting into trouble is, are you carrying medications you're not supposed to have? And that's not necessarily TSA. I mean, prescription laws are pretty funky. I mean, if you have a prescription for your wife's Celebrex in the glove box, I mean, technically speaking, you're not supposed to have that, and you can get in trouble for it because it's not your prescription. So generally speaking, pharmaceuticals are where you're going to run into issues. And if you're the fish antibiotics guy, they're probably not going to let you travel with those. But most of your trauma stuff is pretty safe and on the up and up.
Okay. Another question from our buddy, Bearded Firearm Guy. Jay, what's in your? You talked about your trunk kit or what you keep in your car, maybe a large medical type of bag. What do you carry in it? What do you have and then what do you recommend?
Okay, so yeah, to plug my own IFACs, I've got 2 tiers of IFACs. So I got a tier 1 and a tier 2, and it's designed so that I'm not buying multiples of the same item. All right, so the tier 1 is your individual kit. I've got it broken down into what the stuff I need right now. Like I only have minutes to spare to save somebody's life. And the tier 2 stuff is the equipment that statistically I've got a few minutes. I have time to run to my car to go get the splints or what have you. So generally what you'll find on me are the faster tourniquets, NPAs, chest seals, maybe some gauze. It's either in my bag or in my glove box. And in the trunk of my car, I would have some more extensive stuff like, maybe a breathing bag, an ambu bag, splints, to name a few. So that's kind of how I divide it up, not necessarily by size and weight, but by how much time do I have to go get said equipment.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Let me go back. I'm running out. I have one question that I'm saving. So, Jeff or Jess, you guys got any questions?
A great quote I like is, teach early what you learned late. So what's one piece of advice or one thing that you learned that really impacted you? Or
Man, I don't know. There's so many. Know your role. I think really you got to know the basics. I don't know how else to stress that. I mean, that's been my biggest thing. My entire soft career carries over as a civilian is don't get distracted by bikinis and glitter and shiny stuff. Like even in my own videos, if it's been a while since I practiced shooting and put a tourniquet on with one arm, I mean, I'll go out and practice it. You have to be humble enough to say, hey, look, I'm weak. I should be good at this and I'm not. So rather than let pride keep me from fixing the problem, I'm going to go out there and train on it. So I don't know, master the basics. Master the basics.
Okay. Jeff, anything?
Now that I think of, really, actually, I did have one question. Can you explain your logo? Because it's pretty neat.
Oh, yeah. So you got the pickaxe. The idea is that we as a group, kind of come from the unconventional warfare guys, as we're managing and led largely by special forces, and we're kind of heading back towards, pioneer skills, an older way of living, self-reliance, kind of, I don't need anybody, taking responsibility for my own destiny, and but doing it as warriors. When Spartans were too old to fight, they retired back to their farms, right? So that's kind of borrowed from that motif and brought that over to the imagery.
That's really cool. And again, too, be sure to check out those classes because I really like it's not there's more than just gun stuff there, and I applaud that. I think that's really cool. So another question would be from Sean again is survival rate increases have been mentioned a lot. What seems to be the biggest factor in that? Then he has managing bleeding ?
Say that one more time.
So he says survival rate increases. Survival rate increases have been mentioned a lot. What seems to be the biggest factor in that? Was it managing bleeding?
Well, yeah. I mean, functionally, it was early aggressive management of what we call controllable hemorrhages. But really, if you back it up before any specific care, was the collection of data. We identified the 3 most common preventable deaths on the battlefield as uncontrolled hemorrhage, tension pneumothorax, and airway complications. And we focused on treating those 3 very aggressively, and it worked. So number 1 being, extremity hemorrhages or controllable hemorrhage. Yeah, I mean, that turned it around. You got to remember, in Vietnam, tourniquets, again, they were verboten. They just didn't do it. And by today's medical standards, we don't see those problems.
Okay. So my last question is, and because this is obviously something that very few people probably have experience in, but definitely you would, of actually, if you can maybe provide a peek into or exactly what it might be like of actually providing medical care while under fire. Because to me that sounds like the most stressful thing of anything is doing that while that's going on. Um, and again, too, I'm really assuming that that's when the training aspect is really important.
It is. I mean, in my own experience, I can only explain it the way so many other combat veterans have explained it. Is, you know, kind of leading up to the mission, you're terrified if something happens when the wheels are down and your feet are on the ground. I mean, it takes over, and it's almost like an out of body experience, and you're just working. So then when the casualty play comes, I mean, it kind of wakes you up out of that, and you're focused in on the moment, but you can only do what you can do. You got to rely on your training, and it's a balance of experience and confidence of managing your casualty while simultaneously having the wherewithal to keep that situational awareness with the firefight that's going on around you. It's high stress. I mean, all medics, and it's not unique to SF medics. You know, have the weight of everybody's life on their shoulder when they walk out of the gate. It's a really crappy feeling. But then when somebody gets shot, you always know who the patient is. It's not like some no-name casualty that comes in through the emergency room doors. You always know who you're working on. I don't know how to describe it. It's weird. It's both out of body and terrifying and stressful at the same time. But when it's all done, it's a life-shaping event.
That was real talk right there. That was, yeah, Jay. Man, I want to thank you for coming on because, yeah, blew me away, man. You are a very awesome guy that made, I think, me and hopefully a lot of other people out there think. And number two, brings home the importance of medical training and how I really need to get off my fat butt and do it. There's nothing else that can change that other than me actually getting out and doing it.
Anytime you want, come on down.
All right, thanks, man. So Jesse, Jeff, you guys got any questions? I'm going to move to wrap up here. I want to see what classes Jay has coming up. Any last questions?
No, I have no more questions, but I want to, again, thank you for coming on. I mean, I really respect your professionalism and just what you've done, obviously, what you've accomplished with your goals and everything that you've done in your life. So, man, again, from me to you, definitely a high level of respect for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, just thank you very much for your service, and thank you for coming on. It means a lot, helping us get out the word about, especially about medical training, which is why I just let you talk, because there's another, professional who comes onto the channel who's both you could say a gun guy, but also a medical guy who's stressing the importance of medical training. And I think that's awesome, and it falls right in line with what we think. So really appreciate you coming on, Jay, and love to take a class with you sometime.
I appreciate it. You guys are always welcome.
Thank you. So what classes do you got coming up on your training schedule, Jay?
The only two scheduled classes we have right now, we got Austere Medicine 2. We got 2 classes running in June, but before that we have a tactical medic. We're going to do the National TAC Med competition in Charlotte. Our team is called Weaponized Medicine. And then we'll be doing SOMA immediately after that. But generally, if you want to do training with us, it's like a dentist. You just schedule it, you pay for the class, and we'll put you in. Or you can use one of our affiliate trainers. You let us know.
Okay. And obviously, they should go to see what's your website? I don't have it up on me.
It is www.cagmain.com.
Okay. So obviously, schedule there, affiliates, all that information, membership is all there.
Everything.
All right. Yeah, that's all I got here. And again, I want to really thank Jay for coming on. And it's always great to talk about, the topics or issues or whatever we talk about. But a guy that has the experience being there and telling you based off his experience of what works, what doesn't, what's important, what's not. It's always good to hear, and it's kind of at least from my aspect, it's a really good. And I'm not going to use the right word, but kind of pat on the back about things that we feel are important and to share with our audience, and then to have you come on who has that experience, kind of confirming that and emphasizing it and talking from his experiences is it's really cool to feel. So again, I appreciate you coming on.
Well, hey, I appreciate you having me. Give me a chance to tell our story. So thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd also like to just point out that Jay's website, cagmaine.com, has a lot of really good blogs. So if you want more information that's can really be expounded upon, then definitely go to the website and just click on one of the medical things or something, and a whole lot of very topical stuff comes up. So I wanted to kind of plug that for you because I was reading and just doing a little bit of research today about you and your company. Some really good stuff on there.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So yeah, guys, again, go check out the show notes, practicallytactical.com. Order a patch while you're there. That would be great. But again, I'll have all the show notes there. I'm also going to embed the Trigger Time TV interview with Jay on there, so you guys can check that out and get some more background. Of course, we'll have all of his links, website, social media, all that good stuff. We'll have it on there. And of course, while you're checking out our website, you can also check all the other shows here on the Firearms Radio Network. This Week in Guns, Precision Rifle. We actually have a new AK-47 podcast, even though they're yucky in my opinion, but Jeff likes them, so
I like them.
Yeah. But you guys can go check that out. And, of course, all the shows on the Firearms Radio Network by visiting firearmsradio.tv. Of course, we want your feedback here at Practically Tactical. Send any compliments, feedback, guest suggestions to nick@practicallytactical.com, and then give us a review on iTunes. But, again, please go check out Jay. Go check out his schedule. If you guys can get into a class, please let us know. I'd love to get an AAR from one of our listeners to put up on our website. I think that would be great. But again, Jay, I cannot stress enough, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us.
Hey, really, thanks, guys. I'm always glad to hang out and tell our story. Yeah, thank you, really.
So, Jeff, you're starting school now. Anything else going on?
Oh my God, chemistry, dude! Holy shit! But now I think I'm ready. I'm ready to learn some new stuff. So excited about that, and started shadowing with some people, and really saw some very cool stuff yesterday. So very excited about this whole medical path that I'm going to be on. So
Yeah,
What are you going to
I'm sorry.
What are you studying for?
I got to get a couple more science prerequisites because I'm going back to school for nursing.
Oh, right on. That's good.
Yeah, thanks. And very excited about it. So I got a lot of people that kind of came out of the woodwork and they're like, oh, well, I do this and you could shadow me. And I'm like, of course I want to shadow you. I got to see a really invasive surgery, 4.5-hour surgery, yesterday, and just awesome stuff. So looking forward to getting involved with that.
I can't wait, Jeff, till you get your degree, just so we can give you the title of Head Nurse of Practically Tactical. That's going to be awesome. Head Nurse.
Head nurse.
And then Jesse, from the filming in 2 days, a day and a half, we're leaving for the Sentinel Concepts Essential Essential Rifle class, so that'll be a good time. I have a lot of gear to check out. Anything else going on, buddy?
No. I just finished up some pictures from the MDFI shotgun class, so you should be able to check those up on the website probably later tonight. And yeah, I'm going to get our rifle on for this weekend, dust off the old carbines.
Well, there it is, guys. Please, again, go check out Jay. Go check out one of his classes. Get into it. Let me know how much you like the class. I would love to hear about it. But as always, guys and gals, we thank you for tuning in and listening to us, as we really appreciate it. They give me a hard time for saying that.
As we greatly appreciate it.
And we'll see you next week for another episode of Practically Tactical.